Right, guys. Thank you for attending this afternoon. Thank you for staying on because I know it's the last session of the day. I'm hoping you've all had a great day. People have put a lot of effort into being here today, and thank you for coming here as well when it's meant to be a day off. So I'm hoping that this is going to be, for people who work in FinOps, this is going to be a really important session because it's going to be showing you something which I'm hoping you have all needed. I've certainly needed it from our business, and I'm sure that you probably all have as well. I just want to do a quick check to see who we've got in the room. So who have we got from the customer side, so the users of finance and operations? Have we got anyone? Fantastic. Who have we got from the partner side? I won't ask who we got from Microsoft, because I know that. So so it's just, I just wanted to get an idea because you're all going to have different problems with your systems, and I'm going to show you today a product that we've created to try and fill this gap, but I'm also going to show you the private preview from Microsoft who've given us permission to show you what's coming next. So the two solutions together will give you a whole, and will give you the ability to move away from lifecycle services, which I'm hoping everyone in the audience has either worked with or understands how much pain that can be. It's a great tool, but there are problems with it. So I'm going to whiz past that bit because I'll talk a bit more about how good this was, and thank you to all the sponsors. So I've been working in the industry since the late 90s. I started off with Ebex before it came DHC. In a little tiny unit in Chesterfield, I was one of the first 10 people in that company. So that's where I've come from. Worked in AX since it was version 3, well 2.5, version 3, all the way through. So I've got quite a lot of experience. And thankfully, from all the work that I've done, I've now been able to grow a fantastic Microsoft partner with a fab team. And it's really nice to see how the community has changed, because back in the days when we were talking about AX3, this kind of event would not have happened. So it's really nice to see how the community is changing and how people's knowledge is now being promoted as being helpful to other people rather than people's value only. And it's fantastic to see that. So the problem isn't about performance, right? The problem is not performance itself. It is inherited within performance, but it's actually about people's perception of the system. Your ERP system, if you're a customer, or your ERP system if you're a partner, is one of the most important systems that you will ever have within your organization because it looks after everything. From a customer point of view, perception and expectation of the users, yes, the system's got to work well. Yes, it's got to look nice. And yes, the guys over in HR really need to have a system that looks good, and it might not be D365 FO, it might be something else. But the finance team and the core users of your system, they must be able to use the system, and they mustn't be saying, oh, but it's slow and I've got problems with it. Please, can someone sort this out? You don't want that. From a partner point of view, we do care. We absolutely care, but the ability for us to make change has been reduced. So if, from a customer point of view, you get frustrated and you say, why is my system running slowly, and you ask your partner is going to find it difficult to answer that question most times, and the partner will then have to fall back to Microsoft to answer the questions. Microsoft have basically created themselves as the largest managed service provider in the world behind the D365 system. Everything's all good if we can get the answers quickly and it makes sense to people, but when that doesn't happen, we have a real issue showing you that we know where your problem exists. And it's stressful. So we need to find a way to really fill that gap, be more transparent, be informed, and basically be invisible. We shouldn't be known to be there, we should be invisible. So, we probably have a few people that need to sit behind lifecycle services mostly and keep making sure that at least someone knows how to press F5 quite a lot to make sure that it loads and we get the latest information when it's needed, just in case that phone rings and just in case we have to answer an issue. Or we get an issue come through on the support lines and the guys are saying the system is running terribly. And we don't press F5, we go over and we press that little tiny circle button in the corner, which starts to refresh the page, and it should happen instantly, right? But then you still sat there half an hour later because the system's running slowly that day and it doesn't quite work. So there's a performance issue inside your ERP system, but there's also a performance issue inside LCS. And that performance issue, it's not good news for us. So we need a proactive way of measuring performance so we know before everyone else knows about how we can move forward. So we came up with some ideas for this. We thought there's definitely some good ways that we can do this. I've seen something on the internet, on YouTube. So we thought we could buy loads of mobile phones. And what we could do is we could load LCS onto every single mobile phone, and then we can automate the pressing and the clicking of these buttons and screenshot it and send it over. And that's great because we've got Power Automate now as well, and we can get inside there and we can do loads of good stuff. So we thought about that, and then we thought that's not IP. That's stupid. So we couldn't do that. So then we started to think, well, what else can we do? Because as a managed service provider, we need, inside our offices, we need to have some screens. So that inside the screens, we need to have the information about what's happening inside the D365 system. The problem is it doesn't really work like that. So what we could do is we could screenshot things. And what we could do is we could screenshot those screens, and then we could send it to everyone over email, and then everyone would know exactly what was going on at that time, and we send it to our customers. So we thought there's some new IP we can get. There's some new IP that we can work on to get that information to everyone. So we came up with pigeons. So we thought maybe what we could do is we could screenshot this thing on LCS, we could put it in the printer, we could attach it to a pigeon, we send it to people. Obviously we're not going to do that. Of course we're not going to do that. We don't live in the dark ages, but what LCS has forced us to do is to live in the dark ages. There are so much better tools out there that we can use. Microsoft create them, so why can't we use them? So if it doesn't exist, we had to go and build it. And it took us 2 years to try and build this product. The reason why it took us 2 years to build this product is A, the goalposts kept changing, and B, you've got to get this product out into production systems before you can prove that it works. Because without having a production system to run it on, hey, it could be an issue in itself. So we did do that, and at the same time so did Microsoft. So now we're in a fight. Now we're trying to build something that we can do with performance, and Microsoft are building something they can do with performance. And Microsoft kept saying every month, we have it, it's going to be released, it's going to be great, it's going to be out into Azure. The good news is that Microsoft have built something, and it is coming out. And in fact, the public preview is coming out next month, or it should do. The full release of it should be coming later on this year. It does half a job. And luckily for us, because it doesn't usually happen this way, luckily for us it does half the job that we can't do, and we do the other half of the job. I'm going to show you both solutions today, side by side, so you can see what we can do. Everything that we do here backs off onto Azure Monitor. So I don't know how much you guys know about Azure. I guess you've been there, you've probably different technical capabilities. But inside Azure, there's something called Azure Monitor. Azure Monitor is huge. It's pretty much everything you're ever going to need within Azure to look at your on-premise environments, your cloud environments, your business environments, your websites, logic apps, whatever it is that's out there running, Azure Monitor is the way to go. So we took a look and we went down into this piece up here, so we look at application insights. We look at application insights because that is the APM tool from Microsoft. So it's the application performance monitoring tool from Microsoft for .NET websites. D365 Finance and Ops is a .NET website. It's a pretty advanced one, but it's a .NET website. Microsoft have released a tool which pushes all the information into here. So it goes straight in here. It doesn't use anything else. Just data dumped straight into your logs. We can also get the data into there as well. It's the back end for everything. I love that graphic. I'm not sure whether I should have used it, but anyway. So what did we do? We extracted from the middle tier, the AOS tier, we extracted all the performance counters as though you were on an on-premise system. So if you want to know about your memory, you want to know about the CPU, you want to know about some crazy I/O metrics or something else, that's fine. They're all in, they're performance counters. We're good with that. There's been a lot of talk about how do we work out if there's issues within maybe in a batch process. Well, we'll go and get our partners to do some development, create some custom entities, and then we can find out about that. it just does it out of the box. So we've created it out of the box. If there's an issue that's hidden, it'll be logged and it'll be sent over to application insights. Application usage, so how do you know the pages that people use, and how do you know the pathways that they're using throughout your application? This is really useful for training purposes, so people are taking quite a random way through the product. You can tell them, that's great, but hey, you could have done that in 3 steps. So you can train them to use it better. Or one of the biggest exceptions that we see in production systems is people trying to raise journals without putting any lines in the journals. It's a weird thing, but hundreds of people are doing it. I don't know why. One of the big things that we have out the box with a solution is the browser metrics. So when we talk about performance, from the old school, from AX days, performance was all about the server. It was all about the server, and maybe if you're really lucky, you could talk to your team who are on the tier that was actually distributing the client to people. If you were lucky, you would talk to those guys. It's awesome when it's in the cloud. We don't need to worry about that anymore, right? Wrong. Really wrong. Because the browser is your client now, and you get no metrics whatsoever about that. So how many of your users are using something like Firefox? You'd say none. I can guarantee they are. How many of your users are sat in cafes on public Wi-Fi? If you've locked them down, maybe not. If you haven't locked them down, they probably are. And then they're saying, we've got performance issues. But performance issues, you're going to get it on a 1 meg link. It's going to happen. So we can get information back from that, and we can see where these people are. We can also see if they have a problem with latency or browsers. It's a Microsoft APM. We push the data, you get all the goodness out of the performance monitoring tool. So this has future, it's future-proofed in that way, because all we're doing is pushing the data. And it was the biggest thing. We thought we were going to be blown out of the water by Microsoft. If they create something, we have to down tools. Actually, it's a yin and yang situation. They can do database, they can do batch, but they don't go any further for internal reasons. They can't, because if you think about the data that might be coming out of your system, it's going to have, possibly going to have sensitive information in it that you can't go through the Microsoft data centers. So we have to give you something that you can choose to push your data with, not go through the Microsoft data centers. So we've got a really good solution here. Nodetrace will work on cloud, it'll work on premise on the LBD version. It'll also work on the new versions of D365, the cloud versions. They're all based on the same kind of infrastructure, so it all works. It's the only performance alerting tool at all that you're going to get for D365 finance and operations, i.e. your CPU is high, let's send an alert out to the tech team to go and have a look, to go and find out. Let's not have them sat up all night thinking that maybe we're going to have an issue because it's end of month. Let's actually tell them if an issue is happening rather than if it might happen. And it's proactive rather than reactive. The Azure Monitor, which is coming out soon, so this is in private preview. You may be on this program. If you're not on this program, then I'm glad that the guys over in Redmond have let me show this to you. So we get the telemetry performance logs. That's SQL utilization. That is one of the big questions around DTU. So how much is my SQL server getting put under pressure? How do I know that? Well, we can know that with the Microsoft solution now, which is fantastic. And we also get the system metric logs. So the logs are being pushed out for the environments, for backstep executions, everything's captured. Also, if we have long-running queries, again, you would have to go to LCS to get this information. But if you have long-running queries, you can go straight there and you can pull down the queries and get it captured straight away. So really, it's not great in LCS when you're trying to look for these things because you can't really work with the data. But because this is all database driven, you can get in there and you can ask questions and you can write code to look through it. It's not a long PowerPoint presentation. There's no point doing that. I might as well get in there and I want to show you the products and I'll show you how it's used. Because we don't have a massive room, if you do have any questions today to ask, please feel free. Probably wait until I'm further towards the end of the demo, I'll let you know. But if you do have a question, you put your hand up, I'll try and fit it in as we go through. So, So the only way to be able to show you this is through a production-based system. So the production system that we're using is our production system. So we have our own implementation of D365 FO. Microsoft's piece, you can't install it into anything else other than production. So hey, we had to do that. So what I'm going to do before we start is I'm going to run a performance test in production, so anyone can do this. It's just going to bang a load of data into the system and put it under weight. Without me doing that, you're not going to see anything in the metrics. So I'm going to start that running, and I'm just going to leave that alone now. So what we do inside the system is we have a very small add-in. That add-in starts to emit telemetry to Azure. We give you a few keys and it emits telemetry. The Microsoft solution, well, they're already in there straight away, so they're pulling telemetry as well. I'll show you our piece first, and then I'll pop into the Microsoft piece, and I'll show you it all put together into one big screen and show you how that can be used. So I'll start off with absolutely live metrics. So if you think about this, if you're on a Windows server, you might go down and you might have a look at what was happening on there in real time, what processes am I running. I'm going to show you how we can do that in a production system. Remember, we can't get to the virtual machines here. This is purely as hooking in. So live metric streams are going to count down to 1, and in that time, well, it's fairly quick, it'll have connected into the production system. We have 4 AOSs up and running, not in order particularly, but you can just see at the bottom there, this is the live CPU across all of the systems. From here, you can select pretty much any performance counter you want to and place that into there. You just need to know which performance counter you want to have a look at. It's easier to do this in the metrics later on, but this is live connection. If I choose an AOS, then what I can do is I can actually see the processes that are running just here. So what you're going to see is you're going to see the IIS process, so the Windows Server process, and you're also going to see the batch process. It's just a really, really good and quick way for someone to be on the phone saying, I have a performance issue, and come and have a look at this really quickly, and you can give them feedback instantly on where the problem is. It doesn't go deep. If you've got exceptions being thrown, you'll see this area on the right filling up with exceptions. So it does give you an idea into what's happening there and then in real time. So that was a pretty good start, but it's you can't really report on that. It's just it's a simple connection. We then go down to, I'll take you to performance next. So this is where we have a look at what's actually going on in the system right now. So we go into roles, and from here you can see the AOSs, and you'll see the available memory and the process I/O rate, CPU. Fantastic. That's good information again. It's nice and quick for us to get to it. If you want to go and have a look at that data a little bit more in depth, you can go into the logs, you can start to query that. I'll show you all of that together with the Microsoft piece in a minute. What we can also do is we can go and have a look on the browser side as well. So we are currently running performance tests. There's 2 performance tests running, so we're putting this under quite a bit of weight at the moment, which is why we're starting to see some of the dependencies. So inside a web page, inside of any of the D365 web pages, you have the visual piece that you can see, but in the old, like an old .NET website, you click a button and it refreshes the entire page and comes back with new data. So in the new web pages, modern, like the last 3-4 years, maybe more, we have something called Ajax. There's lots and lots and lots of JavaScript Ajax. It's pretty heavy behind the scenes, but every single one of those calls is bringing back data. So when someone says, I have a performance issue, it could be any one of those things that's causing the problem. We can see every single one of those now. So every single piece of JavaScript that's running in the background, we can see. If we want to have a look at this, I'll take you to exceptions in a minute, and that's going to show you a lot, because you're going to see a lot of JavaScript exceptions coming in, which I'll tell you how to fix. But we can see the length of time these pieces are running for, and you can run all the way through here. And if you need to, you can start to zoom into certain areas and start to pick up whether things are going faster or slower over time. Given the internet connection here, I'll probably just leave that and move on to somewhere else. But the performance is not only server, it's also in the client, so in the application itself. If I move over to failures, then what we've got over in failures is We can have a look at it in the exceptions over here. So this is server-based exceptions. So we have some exceptions here. So I can have a drill into these to see what's going on. And maybe we feel like that one is a spike that we'd like to have a look at. And we see there's 2 exceptions being raised. This is going to give you the stack trace for the exception. So again, in the old system, in an AX 2012 system, an error is produced. It pops something up on the window in front of you, and someone gives you a call and says, hey, I've got this really nasty message in front of me. Okay, can you take a screenshot of that? Absolutely. And then they might email it to you. In our situation, you don't need to do that. Every time something is thrown, it fires it off to us. This particular exception, we've created this for effect, is one of the things we find a lot. My email isn't working. Yeah, it's because someone's gone on and changed the configuration, but they didn't tell you. So we've set that up here. So the SMTP server response is not working, so we can go into here, have a look, and it'll give us the full trace of how that was actually run. So for a developer, you can say, hey guys, could you go and just have a look at this for me and see where this might have been run from? And then it gives you a nice response itself. Think about this in development terms. No one I know in this room would ever have put something into production by being put under pressure to say, you've got to do it now because we're really desperate. So you put in something that hasn't been tested fully, yeah, it happens. So we can at least pick that up via this method here. So if something's happening in production and we don't know what the problem is, we can go and have a look at the exceptions. From here, we can go and create a work item. You're all using Azure DevOps, you kind of have to. So we have some details here. I'll go and paste in this information, and then what we'll do is we'll go and create that, and we'll plug it over to Azure DevOps. So if I go into Azure DevOps, into my work items, and refresh this page, hopefully I should see that now created, which I have. So what we can do with this now is we can assign this to one of our development team, or maybe someone on the support desk, or just someone who can have a look at this and try and fix it. So we've done our job, we've gone through, we've looked at performance, we've maybe found some exceptions, and from there we can now give this to someone with the information they need to go and have a look at the issue. And right down at the bottom, we have some nice little links in there to take you back to the original exception and how it happened for you to have feedback in real time. The end-to-end transactions is pretty important if you're having exceptions, but how did you get that exception in the first place? Well, let's have a look at the telemetry that happened before and after that event. So 5 minutes before and after, we can see all the information that we might need to know. The yellow stuff, as in the massive stuff, that's all the JavaScript that's working behind the scenes. If we don't want to see that, we can start to filter. You frankly don't want to see all of that, the dependency stuff all the time. So if we get rid of that, we can see this is what happened. So someone went to the default dashboard, and then they went into performance check just now, and we ran a few different processes which started to throw some issues. So we can start to see what people are doing in real time. If I come back out of failures, we can also go to a live search. Another thing, so a user might ring up and say, I'm having performance issues. If you say, hey, what's your name? And then you've got a naming convention within Dynamics, maybe a 3-letter acronym, or you use the first name dot second name, however you're doing it. You can then put that straight into here and search on it. So I reckon, because he's sat in the audience, I may have some work that's just been done by Peter. And what we can see is we've got some page views here. So we come down, we'll have a look at the page views, get rid of everything. A page view is how the user is experiencing the usage of that system. Yeah, okay, so you try to do something in the email parameters, and then we can have a look at the timeline for that user, and then we can see just what that user was doing over that period of time for us to be able to go and really have a conversation with them on the phone whilst that person's there. And instead of saying, what were you doing? Because they probably can't tell you because they weren't focused on what they were doing at the time. You already know, now you can talk to them about that. So it's not just performance, it's about usage, it's about the way the system is being utilized. There's a whole bunch of things we can do in here. Honestly, with a 45-minute session, I'm not going to be able to take you through everything. But there are some important things that we need to understand. First of all, we can raise alerts on this stuff based on the metrics that we're gaining. So if we need to make an alert fire to tell us something is going wrong, we can easily do that. So if I have a look at CPU being one of the main ones. If we go and have a look at the CPU currently in use across all the cores on the servers, we can see it. If I then want to apply splitting on that, I can look at the cloud instance that's causing it, and then we can split that across all of the servers. And then what we can do is we can go and create a new alert rule based on that information. Because you're using the stuff from Microsoft, and because it's Azure based, and we're doing some pretty cool stuff now with the thresholds, instead of us saying it's only important to us if it's at 80% CPU, that must be when things are going wrong. Actually, it's not. About 30% CPU is where performance issues start to happen. There's two ways of creating alerts. There's one where we tell the system how to do it. The other way is when it's a dynamic threshold. It needs about 3 or 4 days worth of data to be able to do it. But after 3 to 4 days worth of data, it will decide where my thresholds should be. So if you're starting to experience performance issues, it will know that you only ever hit 10%. But if you start to hit 30%, it'll say, oh, hang on, we've got a problem here. There's a problem coming. And that's before anyone in your system decides to say anything. So you know about that already. The other cool thing that you get here is something called smart detection. There's not enough data in the system yet, but this is machine learning. So this will look at across the entire system, and if a page has started to run slowly, machine learning will pick that up and it will tell you, hey, there's a problem. One of the ones that we generally see is it says we have a memory leak. We don't have a memory leak, it's just someone restarted the servers, probably deploying new code. It just sees that as a down and then a spike when the memory starts to go up. So it does work. Sometimes it's a bit of it's a bit of a negative comment, but it does work. So that's our solution. That's what you've not been able to do up until today, and it's going global at the moment. A lot of people are taking it on, so you can get that today. But coming is some other things. Now this is Microsoft's solution. So this is the stuff that's still in private preview. Thank you to the team over in Redmond for letting me show this to you. One of the questions that we get is, if only you could tell us the usage on SQL. Well, we can't do because it's locked down by Microsoft, and without asking their support team, we definitely can't do that. Well, you can. You can now. So if we have a look at this, okay, we're putting some pressure onto the system at the moment. That's the DTU. That's in essence, that's the pressure put on the system. DTU is just it's like an average across CPU and usage in the cloud. But we can see that now, and we can start to raise alerts again based on the usage of the system. There's a whole load of information that we can get out here. I won't run it all. Please come and see me afterwards if you want to. Some of the things that you may well be interested in is things such as the completion of batch jobs. That's pretty good. I'll just run that for you now. What you can also do, so these are all the batch jobs that have been running. It tells you when did they run, when did they complete. To be able to do this, you would have had to go into D365, into sysadmin, into batch jobs, into history, and then at that point you would have got fed up and you may have done something else. But with this, you can just get this report coming out every, however much you want it to come out, really. Or you can take the GUID and you can put that into a SQL statement. You can say, tell me about this batch job if it runs longer than an hour, because it should never run longer than an hour. If it runs longer than an hour, it's probably broken. So you can do that with this solution now, which is fab, because again, if you're from a customer side, you've probably asked your partner to create some code to be able to do this because it's a concern. From a partner side, you don't want to create that code because it's really complex, and it'd just be nice to just be able to get the information you need. So I'm really pleased with what Microsoft have done here. Firstly, because I can't do it, and secondly, because I think it's really good for everyone who uses the system. In terms of forms, so we can do this from our solution. This is where there's a grey area or a crossover. So we can tell you about the forms that are being used. What we can't particularly tell you about is the process time on the servers for the form, but Microsoft can do that. So join them together and you get a full solution. So any form that gets run, we can go and we can have a look at the timings. And again, if you're looking for development or maybe to create some new indexes to run forms quicker, this is a really good indication of how to do that. Talking about development and about how forms run, one of the things that we can do in a system is something called the AppDex index. Well, that's basically for any .NET website or any website. how long will a user stay on a page before they start to get frustrated? It's kind of an industry standard. And what we can do from here is, as a system gets used more, we can get into the AppDex index, and we can find, you tell me which pages are unacceptable. We're not running this very heavily at the moment, but what I can tell you is when you have a heavy system utilized, these are the pages to look at. So you can use this as almost in a sprint. Guys, we need to look at these pages because these are the ones that the users are struggling with. They're not telling us, but this is where the problem is. So there's just, with the amount of data that you can utilize in the system, it's pretty cool. This language that's being used here is something called Custo. You'll have heard of big data, you'll have heard of data interrogation at scale. Custo is a fantastic language. It's one that, in a technical sense, you really need to learn if you're ever going to be interrogating anything up in Azure. It returns information rapidly from terabytes of data. So if you're into anything outside of this, maybe if we're working on things such as security creates so many events that you are going to find it literally impossible to go and find out what that is, but not if you're using this query language, because you can put things into buckets of time and then you can look at them in more detail. So I've shown you how we emit telemetry. I've shown you how we go and have a look at the SQL side from the Microsoft solution and from our side as well. I've shown you how we can go into Azure DevOps. We build all of this so we can go and create a dashboard such as this, which looks all right. I didn't have time to make sure it looks all right on the screen. So I'm using Grafana for this. Yes, of course, you could use any other tool that you like. We like to use Grafana. It's nice and quick. But using Grafana, we can bring all of that data into place in one time. So this is the Microsoft application. This is Nodetrace. This is Nodetrace. We've just crossed the threshold, so this is alerting at the moment. So we've got alerts coming out. We've got the SQL on this. But say you're using Logic Apps, fine. If you're using Logic Apps, put that onto the page as well. Put everything onto the page you can possibly cope with. So that's Nodetrace. It's also the Microsoft piece. There are a number of links that we can use to go and find out more information about this. Please have a look at Nodetrace. The Azure Monitor public preview starts March 2020. So we expect, or we hope, that's going to stay to time. I was asked if I could please just tell you that might not happen, but we're aiming for that. So if it doesn't hit in March, it's going to be fairly close to that time. If you're interested in entering into the public preview, please contact Microsoft. If you don't have contacts into Microsoft, please contact me, and I will put your name across to the guys. Azure Monitor, if you want to be doing any performance monitor in the modern age now, do this. It's used for D365, it's used for the entirety of Azure, but it's also used for on-premise systems, so you don't just have to stay in Azure. You can put down agents onto your local systems as well, and you can still use this. There's no reason not to start moving towards this now, apart from maybe utilization and usage and where you want to put your cache, of course, but that's the only reason. There's a link on there for SQL to Custo, so I'm from a SQL backend, so to learn another language was kind of weird, but if you use that cheat sheet, it'll help you to understand from the old queries you used to run and how you may use Custo. Here's all my contact information. I would very much advise you to just connect with everyone today that you've seen in the sessions. Please connect with me and ask questions. This is a community event. This is not a business event. It's a community event. So if you want to ask questions or if you're interested in talking more about this, then please get in contact. We're always available to have conversations. And with that, I'd just like to say thank you and open the floor to any questions at all with the last sort of 5 to 10 minutes that we've got left. If you haven't got any questions, I'll fill. But if you have, then please ask. Sorry? Pricing for the product, £500 a month for everything. So it's not per environment. It's just that's it. Use it everywhere. You need to have the product itself. and then you need to create an instance in Azure to collect the data. You can manage the pricing across there, so you can cut the amount of telemetry that's emitted causes you a cost in Azure, but you can cut that cost down quite significantly. And we've given you the ability to be able to turn off and on certain telemetry, which the dependencies, for instance, you can turn that off so it doesn't cost you too much. Yeah. 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 So you do the same as we do. So yes, there is. What I would suggest that you do though is if you have, depending on if the customer will allow you to hold their data or not. So that's the first question. So two things is, are you allowed to create an endpoint in your tenant that can collect the data? Yes or no? Probably no. So if that's the case, create them a subscription that you have access to read from, and then you could create a Grafana dashboard that hooks into all of the subscriptions, and you just have it across the whole thing. So absolutely, there's a way of doing it. You just have to decide where the data residency needs to be. If you are buying as a partner, then you can create multiple subscriptions. It's a subscription-based service, so you can turn it off and on every month. It's up to you. I don't like, per se, the Microsoft model for something like this. I think you should be able to use it for a month, and if you don't like it, just turn it off. So we've created an entirely new licensing way to run this. So yeah, you can use it for a small amount of time, maybe during a performance testing period before you go live. You can use it there, and then if you carried on with it, fine, but if you want to get rid of it after that point, fine as well. Because you're in control. It's important that the industry have this. So yeah, we tried to be fair. Any other questions? Okay, so I suppose another couple of things that you might be interested in. The stuff that's starting to come with D365 at the moment. There was an area that I showed you about dependencies where there was a problem that came with exceptions. I didn't actually show you the exception piece. There's from the client, but there's a lot of exceptions that get thrown. If you have a switch turned on in the performance settings in D365 for Skype for Business or for Link, so I don't know if you've seen the little checkbox that says turn this on and off. You probably looked at it and gone, oh, I don't know why. Well, it enables you to see on maybe a few forms in the entire system to say whether you're online or not. It's great. It's great, but if you turn that off, all the exceptions disappear. And you may find it helps performance just a little bit. So yeah, I would go and have a look at that. Out of all the things you can do within the performance settings, that one little thing could help you out a bit. And unless you really need it, just turn it off. So that's one thing that was picked up through the work we were doing. Another thing that was picked up through the work we were doing is you can get the user's browsers, the browser versions. I don't know how you control your user desktops or how your customers control the user desktops, but if you have anyone using Firefox, I mentioned it before, it will break, and it is horrible, and you'll get loads of messages coming through about it. So just try and make sure you're using the new version of Edge, that's good, or Chrome. Basically, anything on the Chromium engine is good. Anything outside the Chromium engine, it's okay. But yeah, Firefox, it's not supported and it'll break things. Trying to think of any other really good pieces. Yeah, so what you'll also find is you may get screenshots sent through to you from the users which suggest that they have lost connectivity from their system. It comes up and I'll send you a screenshot. There's a thing in the system which uses a ping. So basically on the front end, it's always pinging back to the central system to say, are you there, are you there, are you there? When that message comes up, it means that couldn't make connection. It's either because something's gone wrong at their end, or it's because your IIS server just went down. And it's probably because a developer went on there in a test system and probably just deployed some new code. So we've seen that a lot. So it might be something that you might find. Again, with the tool, you can see it straight up. It's just, if you see it, that's what's going on. So that's about it for me. Thank you for coming. It's an interesting area which you need to learn the patterns of your system. Every system is different. We'd like to say it's not, but because you can change your system in any way that you want to, you can customize it. Every single system is different. So if you have a tool, then look at the patterns. Don't just look at the highs and the lows. Look at the standard usage, and that's the main information that I give to you. So thank you, everyone, and go and enjoy beer now. Escape.